Welcome to Breakout Investors. Today we are speaking with the management of BoardwalkTech, ticker symbol BWLKF, specifically the company's chairman and CEO, Andy Duncan. Joining me on today's call is Breakout investor Florian Buschek. This call is being recorded on August 10th, 2021, and will be distributed via the Breakout Investor channel on YouTube and via our podcasting network. Look for Breakout Investor content wherever you subscribe to podcasts. We are on Apple, Spotify, Audible, and most other platforms. Supporting material for today's discussion will be posted on the Breakout Investors discussion app, which is located at app.breakoutinvestors.com. The platform and application and much of the research content is free. After registering and logging in, use the search bar at the top right of any page, type the ticker symbol, and the result will give you the link to the research post and this presentation, and to the other discussion and research relating to today's company. Those of you already on the Breakout Investor platform can share your questions for the company using the Discuss tab in Florian's breakout room. So let's get started with me handing over the microphone to Florian, who will speak briefly about his interest in BoardwalkTech and then turn the call over to management. Florian?
Yes, hello everybody. So I think before I make too many words, we just let Andy present and we will follow up with a few questions and hopefully very good answers. And yeah, I would say let's get started.
Great. Thank you very much, Florian. I'm honored to be here at Breakout Investors, and my name is Andy Duncan. I am the chairman and CEO of BoardwalkTech. I'm also joined today by Charlie Glavin, who's our CFO. So if we get into any super technical questions with regard to finance stuff, we can hand it over to Charlie. Okay, well, let me go ahead and get started. Traditional forward-looking statement. And let's talk about Boardwalk. So Boardwalk is headquartered in the Silicon Valley. We've also got offices in Mumbai, India. We've developed a digital ledger powered low-code application platform where we work with large organizations to help them move a lot of their manual processes, mainly in Microsoft Excel, over onto the platform that gives them enhanced security, compliance, and the ability to get to decisions faster, which of course drives improvement in both their business and the results. We're all about kind of transformation of this unstructured data, which Microsoft Excel and all of the processes that are run in Microsoft Excel are considered unstructured. And if you kind of take a look at the enterprise itself today, which is primarily where we sell into, they've spent a tremendous amount of money on the big systems of record like SAP and Oracle and Salesforce.com. I mean, we have customers today that have literally spent over $1 billion on that software. Yet when you go into these companies and you sit down and you really talk to them about how they're making decisions, how they're managing data, it's amazing to us to see how much Microsoft Excel is used and how important it is in the enterprise. And so we look at this Microsoft Excel and all of this kind of what we say unstructured data as the last big hurdle in the enterprise. Most enterprises today have everything pretty well under control, with the exception of all of this unstructured data that's coming at them, and most of that is sitting in Microsoft Excel. Our business model that we transformed in 2018 to a SaaS platform as a service model. Today we have over 20 of the Fortune 500 as customers. 65% of our revenue comes from multi-year annual recurring licenses. Our pipeline over the past year during the COVID has actually doubled to in excess of $9 million. And we're continuing to invest in our sales force, adding another new salesperson 2 weeks ago in the Chicagoland area. Our license revenue continues to increase 26% from the post-2018 clients. which is basically this SaaS model. And our business is pretty darn scalable. We're running on average, 85, 86% gross margin. We continue to make improvements with regard to our net income. Any of you that are following the company currently or have followed the company, you'll know that we did a fairly large financing, about 11 million Canadian, 8.5 million US at the end of February, beginning of March. Those funds really helped us not only to improve the balance sheet, but also we paid off all of the debt on the company in March of 2021. We had some venture debt on there, and we're thrilled with the fact that we've got this very solid balance sheet. We are completely debt-free, and we are tracking to being a profitable company here in the near future. So what exactly is the technology that Boardwalk has developed? We have multiple patents, and one of them is we have a patent on what we call a digital ledger, which is a new way of managing data within the enterprise. And I think that you guys understand that our focus has been on helping companies with that kind of, last hurdle or last mile, if you will, of data that today is not controlled appropriately, not secure, and is still being manually managed. And most of that information resides in these Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. So our low-code application platform that we license to companies on again a SaaS basis allows people to be able to connecting these spreadsheet processes into our platform allows people to be able to work at the same time, which is quite extraordinary. So there's no locking, if you will. Allows people to make changes on the same data while managing all of this information with a database behind the scenes where we have what we call a single version of the truth. And they can do all of this without mucking up the data in the process. So again, traditionally, how people manage data is they email these spreadsheets around. And by the time you get done with that, it's a complete disaster. You don't know what version you're on. You don't know who's made what change. And by migrating these spreadsheet-based processes that are mission critical in the enterprise over onto the Boardwalk Digital Ledger low-code application platform, we allow you to be able to have authorization, a full audit trail, accountability, provenance and tracing of the transactions, and a far superior and improved method of being able to manage all of this data in these spreadsheets. So what does the enterprise kind of look like today? Well, this is kind of my favorite slide in the whole deck, because what it shows you here on this one side is this is how companies operate today. And literally, we'll walk into a company and these companies will have thousands of these Microsoft Excel spreadsheets where they're capturing data from different places in the organization, and they're aggregating that data onto these spreadsheets. Before you know it, as they start to aggregate the data onto the spreadsheets, they start writing formulas and macros. And before you know it, information that is in these spreadsheets becomes mission critical, and decisions that are being made in the enterprise isn't necessarily out of their big transactional systems of record. Multi-million-dollar decisions every minute are being made off of the information that's resident in these Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. So the whole mission of Boardwalk and our digital ledger platform is, how do we help companies take this messy fruit salad that's all of these different spreadsheets that are being emailed around and put on file servers, and who made the last change and what version am I on? And it takes 3 days waiting for somebody to send back a spreadsheet so you can update your data. It's inefficient, it's expensive, there's a lot of errors, it's time consuming, it's a flat out mess. And so when we explain the fact that by migrating and transforming these spreadsheets over onto the Boardwalk Digital Ledger, that allowing us to be able to effectively put a database behind the Excel process. So when we move the data over onto the digital ledger, the Boardwalk digital ledger, we don't ask them to change anything in their Excel. They continue to use Excel as normal, as native. The only thing that they change is that they open up Excel, they make a change, and instead of emailing the file, they simply hit submit refresh. A submit refresh then looks at all the cells in that spreadsheets that has changed and basically moves it onto the digital ledger here, so that when the next party comes in and says, I'd like to see what changes have been made, instead of opening up an email with an attachment, they simply open up their spreadsheet and hit refresh. Let's call them their party number C or party C, and they'll actually see the changes come in real time into their local spreadsheet. And so when you think about the fact that companies have thousands of these spreadsheets, it really is kind of the last hurdle, the last mile of digital transformation. And Boardwalk is sitting here with this terrifically powerful digital ledger platform that we've built out that allows you to be able to do transaction chaining, allows us to be able to have a timestamp. We effectively have got a record of every single change made forever in the spreadsheet because all of it is recorded on the digital ledger. And so when we show this to companies, they go, wow, that's really fantastic. I've got a lot of different applications that I could move that's currently in manual Excel over onto the Boardwalk digital ledger. And that's how we roll. We get into a company, we solve a problem first for them, and then we land and expand against that particular company that not only drives additional recurring license revenue, but also is a very sticky environment, because once they move these spreadsheets over onto the Boardwalk digital ledger and they start recognizing the power of what we do, it's very difficult for them to leave. So what is exactly, what are the problems that we solve? So the first thing that we do is we help these companies transform these manual-based Excel processes into and onto our low-code digital ledger platform so that you can actually now get them into the enterprise ecosystem. So instead of, 3 people that are VPs or senior directors controlling, these different spreadsheet applications, it's now under the guise of the IT department. Everybody knows who's connected, everybody knows what data is being seen, and we're connecting it into their other transactional systems of record. The second area that we really help with is in compliance. So we're going to talk a little bit later about this new area that we're entering, which is in kind of the financial services arena. And there's been a lot of talk over the past kind of 12, 18 months about compliance with regard to these spreadsheets. You also are seeing a lot of issues around compliance all around the world regarding data that is private and personal data that can't be shared outside of an organization. Well, guess what? There was an executive from a very large worldwide bank that had his laptop stolen at Heathrow. Sitting on that laptop happened to be 50 Microsoft Excel processes that he was managing and running and part of. And within all of those Microsoft Excel processes, there was all kinds of private data that was sitting in that on that laptop in those Microsoft Excel processes that really caused a big problem for the bank. And so these banks now are starting to, and most big companies are really starting to look hard at, am I in compliance? Do I have my data protected? Am I providing the right tools for my employees to make sure? Am I monitoring the information and the transactions that are in these systems of record? And so that's definitely where we play. Security is another big part, which is that, do I have these spreadsheets backed up? Do I have them secure? Are they behind our single sign-on system for security and access, of which many of them today are not? And so with the Boardwalk, patented digital ledger platform, We provide the ability to transform these spreadsheets into an enterprise app. We provide the compliance component of this, including the patented transaction chaining, so you can have a history of what's going on. We provide all of the security, whether that's integrating into the existing security environment of a company or us providing the security for them. And then we help these companies to unify the data. So remember that if you're an enterprise information worker today, you got information coming at you like you can't believe. There's tweets and there's emails and there's attachments and there's PDFs and there's URLs, and it's like, how do I manage this data? I need a place to be able to unify this data so that I can combine it, analyze it, and help me and my colleagues in my organization make better, more insightful decisions and make those decisions faster. So one of the things that the Boardwalk Digital Ledger Platform does is we help employees and enterprises unify their data. And then, of course, the visibility. So as we all know, time is money. And based upon that, if you can provide visibility or the information faster than your competition, if you can see that data faster, such as I'm going to be out of inventory on Thursday, I need to do an emergency shipment, as opposed to finding out Wednesday night, knowing that you don't have time to do an emergency shipment, which means you're going to lose sales revenue. That's the difference between knowing early and knowing late. And that visibility, the ability to rapidly see changes that are happening, is a very important component of what Boardwalk does, because when we bring everybody together on the digital ledger platform, everybody can see the transactions that are happening in a real-time basis across either internal people, across partners, across distributors, you name it, it doesn't matter. It's very important for them to be able to see that. And when we show them that they're going to be able to actually speed up the information sharing, which will then allow them to make a better, faster decision, they really start to resonate. And I've got some good examples to show you later about that. So the solution is really critical to enterprises. Our platform really provides a very deep value, and we provide kind of at the core 4 different things. We provide a collaboration environment where, again, as we talked about, the speed and agility of getting the information. We certainly provide a much more efficient environment for someone to be able to make decisions versus legacy systems and or emailing these spreadsheets around and waiting for 3 days for someone to respond. We also have this full compliance environment that allows you to be able to audit, look at all of the transactions and the provenance and tracking. That really provides trust and security and testing. So, many times these people will go out, they'll copy and paste information from a big enterprise system, put it into the spreadsheet, and then no one really knows if that data is accurate or not, or even up to date. And so with Boardwalk, we have the ability to integrate into those systems of record, pull the data in, and effectively create a real-time environment so that not only they can see the data, but it's also fully auditable and meets the compliance standards of the industry. And then, of course, analytics, so that if you've got the data now in a single version of the truth, and you can really see the data sitting on the database, which is what the digital ledger is all about, you can actually make much more rapid decisions and drive a lot of that information through analytics that you can run through the Boardwalk platform. So, again, to kind of wrap up the problem is that while these large enterprises have spent a lot of money, like Coca-Cola spent over $1 billion on SAP, yet you walk in there and they've got nothing but spreadsheets all over the place. And those spreadsheets are defined in the enterprise as, as unstructured data, because there's no security control, there's no control from their IT department. And so it's totally unstructured. It's a wild, wild west. And so about 80% of the data in any enterprise today is unstructured. And it's still the wild, wild west. And so that's why we talk about kind of that last mile of being able to help them to transform this unstructured data into an enterprise environment. So unstructured data, just to continue to further define this, is really all about data that's not managed in a database and not managed in their current corporate IT environment. So think of as a PDF, as an HTML, as a Word document, and or Microsoft Excel, which happens to be the largest type of unstructured data application that's out there. And so, this unstructured data is very costly. The lack of accessibility, the lack of security, the lack of control drives also very slow decision making. And we've all seen a lot of these press releases and white papers about, such and such bank made an error in a formula and it cost them millions of dollars. It's very common not only in banks but also throughout the enterprise, where they could make these really terrible mistakes that can sincerely affect a company, including their earnings and everything else. So it's very important that these companies really need to get control of this unstructured data. So Boardwalk's digital ledger not only helps them to be able to get control of the unstructured data, which we just talked about, but on the other side, the other 20% of the data that's sitting in an enterprise, of the data that's sitting in Oracle and SAP and Salesforce and IBM, through our digital ledger platform, we provide this single version, this single place, if you will, that allows someone in the enterprise to search, organize, and manage both their structured and unstructured data. So there's a lot of data that sits in a structured environment, such as inventory data that's sitting in SAP, or sales forecasting data that's sitting in Salesforce.com, that you need to pull out of the structured environment and bring it into the digital ledger, and then marry that with the unstructured data so that now you can come to a better decision because you've got the information at your fingertips and it's the right information. So why it's important for the enterprises to adopt the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform is we help them increase their revenue and improve their results because of the speed by which they can make decisions. We also see an improved customer satisfaction. So if you've got the right product on the right shelf at the right time, or information that's flowing so that you can make sure that you're meeting your customers' needs, that's really important. Compliance and auditability, this new market that we're now entering into, financial services, has a heck of a lot to do with compliance and auditability. And these companies are going to be under increased pressure over the next 4 to 5 years to get control of this unstructured data, especially in spreadsheets. And that all comes back to, how do I get these into compliance? How do I make them auditable? They're not auditable today when you're emailing spreadsheets around. They are auditable if they're in the Boardwalk Digital Ledger, because we track every single transaction, single version of the truth on the database. The next thing is actionable real-time visibility of all the data. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is. There are some companies today that an hour difference in trying to make a decision is really important. You guys think of the Bloomberg terminals that you've got and all the information that's coming in, where you're making decisions whether you want to buy, sell, go long, go short, whatever you do. And that's all about having the data right at your fingertips right now. Imagine if you were in a manual Excel environment and you had to wait for somebody to send you an Excel spreadsheet that you then had to interpret once you got it to then make a decision. The opportunity could be long gone. And so this ability to move data quickly in a real-time environment on this digital ledger platform with a single version of the truth, where it's all tracked and chained together and auditable, is very important. And then, of course, that central control and management of the unstructured data on the platform. that allows everybody to then rapidly collaborate and align so that you're making better decisions. So some of our customers today, again, pretty well known. Our largest customer is Ernst & Young. So keep in mind that the platform is a general platform. We don't have specific applications that we sell. So when we go into a large organization, we talk to them about where do you have the most spreadsheets? Like, where does it hurt the most? Like going to the doctor, tell me, doc, where does it hurt? And we have a pretty good idea when we go into a large organization where there's going to be a large number of spreadsheets that need to be remediated, need to be worked on for them. And so certainly it's somebody like a Coca-Cola or a Levi's, and their supply chain is an area where we really like to work, and we can provide a lot of value. Somebody like EY, again, our largest customer, they use us in their tax technology platform. So we're an important component of their tax technology platform that allows them to be able to manage data in these Excel spreadsheets for being able to track and see what's going on. So imagine if you're doing an audit or you're doing a tax return, and you're a Fortune 1000 company that you've hired EY. What's the first thing that happens? EY walks in the door, they sit in your conference room, they got 8 people there, they're going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks, and they start asking you for, show me the following 200 purchase orders and the following 800 invoices, and show me this HR data and show me this data. And what do they use to aggregate all that data together to then build out what your tax or what your audit is going to look like? They use Microsoft Excel. And so by deploying the Boardwalk solution and our digital ledger platform, it allows them to more rapidly capture the data, have a historical chained transaction, set of transactions, so that they know who made changes, when and why, and therefore it improves the speed by which they can actually get their work done, and reduces the risk associated with it because of the fact that you can have an audit trail of what's going on. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other customers on here. I'm happy, by the way, to walk you through some different examples. And I actually have a couple of use cases that I can show you if we have time. So the areas where we see the most use on the platform is in financial planning and analysis. You can imagine all the spreadsheets that are there. Supply chain management, deal price management. I've got a great example to show you in a minute about that. Trade and procurement spend management. So, Coke spends $3 billion a year in trade promotion, tracking, are they going to sell this product on a 3-for-2 discount or a 12% discount if Walmart puts it on an end cap? Think of all of the stuff that's being done. And by the way, think of all the spreadsheets that are being bounced around to try and figure out what type of a discount you want to provide, what the historical's been, where all of that is, right? None of that stuff, by the way, is in any big enterprise system. All the stuff is being done outside of their, big traditional systems of record. And then, of course, tax planning, which we talked about with EY, and packaging management is also another big area where we do a lot of work. So I wanted to give you kind of an example of a client. This is an apparel client. Just an example of kind of the land and expand strategy that we have. So I talked about that earlier, where we get in, we build a relationship, and then once we get in, we start to expand across a particular business unit or across the enterprise. In this particular case, this apparel client, all of these things that you see here happen to be applications that they were running in Microsoft Excel. So all of their production planning was being done in Microsoft Excel. And so what we did is we sat down with them and we said, okay, show us everything that you've got. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And they said, the systems aren't talking to each other. The spreadsheets don't talk to each other. It takes us a long time to get to decisions. Sometimes we have to wait 3 days to get the right data. That can really cause a problem. So we said, fine, here's how we're going to solve this on the Boardwalk platform, on the digital ledger platform. And we basically built these first 5 applications for them, all connected up on the digital ledger platform. And the remaining applications here that are in white are pending applications that we're either working on or will be working on as we kind of go forward. So this is the land and expand strategy. And it's really wonderful to be able to see that once we build that trust, we get in and they go, wow, this is really helping us over here. Why don't we use Boardwalk to solve the problem over here and over here and over here? And that's exactly what we want. We think that most large enterprises today have got a minimum of at least 100, sometimes 1,000, but at least 100 mission critical spreadsheet processes that they're running that would be perfect candidates to move on to the Boardwalk digital ledger platform. So, if you think about kind of how we charge and the ROI that we can provide, we go in, we license the platform to them in a platform as a service or SaaS environment. And then we just roll the next application and the next application and the next application. And through that, we build our revenue on a recurring basis. Takes about anywhere from kind of 4 to 6 weeks per application to deliver it. That normally is 2 or 3 people. And we're not writing any code. The platform is a low-code platform, which means that we're just doing configuration work. So, normally 6 weeks, it's 2 weeks for requirements, 2 weeks for the configuration, and then 2 weeks for testing and training. And so that's why it kind of takes 6 weeks. But once that's done, they're up and running, and then we go to the next one and we go to the next one. So, we're thinking long term that if we could get a company to, 20 or so of these applications, they're going to be paying us anywhere around, $500,000 to $1 million a year in recurring revenue. And we think we'll be able to get them, as we already have one client today, at kind of $1 million a year recurring, all you can eat, move all your spreadsheets onto the Boardwalk platform. And when you start doing the math and you say, gee, Andy, you guys have got, 20 major customers today that could fit that bill. And then you think about the fact that we're well on our way to, getting 200 of those types of customers over the next few years. And you start thinking about $1 million a year off of that on a recurring basis at a high margin, you can really start to understand kind of where we're going as a business and what's happening. This is another great example of the speed component of Boardwalk. So on semiconductor, great customer, multiple applications running. Last year, we built out this RFQ management system for them. So what was happening is that they were getting in about 25 RFQs a day, and they were all coming in spreadsheets by email. And so then they would take those emails, break them apart, and send them out to a dozen people in the organization for them to quote on their component, and then bring it back and then provide back the response to the RFQ. And it was taking them about 7 days. There was a lot of emailing, there was a lot of collaboration, there was a lot of errors going on. We automated the entire system, letting them continue to use the spreadsheets that they use today. We reduced the response time to 2 days. So it's really interesting. What happens is that while I can show you this great ROI on the, kind of a pure hard dollar ROI, but the ancillary benefit is that they increase their sales conversion by up to 20%. Because they responded faster to the RFQ, they got more orders. And therefore, that isn't even included in the ROI that we're talking about here. So, this is a great example of something that was done manually that now is moved over to an automated method on the digital ledger platform. And really not only by improving the time by which they could respond, there's tremendous benefit on increased sales conversion and improving the way in which they are responding back to a customer. So our financial highlights in 2021, I will remind you that we are a March 31 fiscal year end. So 35% year over year EBITDA improvement, and we're continuing to work toward profitability just as quickly as we can. 63% of our revenue came from our new SaaS model. Our prior model, we had perpetual licenses. And so as we've been converting some of those perpetual licenses, but also not selling any perpetual licenses since 2018, we really talk about our new SaaS model since 2018. And so you'll see 63% of our revenue is from that new SaaS model. Current pipeline over 9 million, and again, gross margins at 86%. So, the focus here is recurring revenue. Really sticky solution is driving our growth. So we've got kind of two major paths, right? We've got hunters that are our salespeople that are looking for those big new logos that we can bring in, and that's part of the 9 million pipeline. We also have a team that's working on not only the delivery, but also expansion within those companies. So the land and expand, that's also part of our 9 million pipeline. And it's much easier, obviously, to sell and drive additional revenue from an existing customer because you don't have to go through the contract nonsense. But we got to also continue to really focus on new logos and new names as we continue to go. So we're really starting to see this build of not only pipeline of deals that we're closing, both new customers and land and expand with our existing customers. Our capital structure here, again, pretty simple. I think our share price today was 86 cents. You see our market cap, our enterprise value, cash on the balance sheet today, over 3 million US. We have zero debt. Really proud of that, by the way, that we were able to get that done. And then you'll see kind of our shares outstanding. And management still owns a pretty significant percentage of the business going forward. So we're definitely quite focused. Management team, very senior management team. All of us have been in Silicon Valley for a long time. All of us have been part of not only large companies, but also startups. And this particular management team has been together for quite some time. And I'm really proud of this team. And I'd go to war with these guys, which we do every day as we're out there looking to continue to build out Boardwalk. So the investment opportunity with regard to Boardwalk is we have this unique, patented, sustainable, and competitive platform. And platforms, they're a little tough in the beginning, but man, when they get rolling, they're really good. We're really focused on enterprises that are actively seeking solutions, especially to solve this unstructured data problem, and it's getting better for us. Very sticky solution. Again, our attrition rates are quite low. We've got this growing recurring revenue. The pipeline continues to build, good margins, and I would say significant operational leverage. And when you look at the company now with the debt paid off and the cash on the balance sheet, and us striving toward profitability, I really think we're a very exciting opportunity going forward. The last thing that I would like to show you, which I think people find helpful, and I'll just spend a minute or two on this, is kind of what does Boardwalk look like? Well, this is an example of an application that we built out for a customer today, where they're collecting data across a whole bunch of different data sets, and they're sharing this data with this kind of heat map, if you will, that shows them what's going on in a particular time frame, and then reports that come here. And the way in which you would, if I was, say, a senior director, and I said, I want to understand how many days of inventory was left for a particular product, I could literally open this up, hit the refresh button. A refresh button goes out to the server and pulls the real-time data back into my spreadsheet, and then updates all of this so that I can see what's going on. So in one single version, I can take a look at this heat map and say, okay, for this particular product, I'm good for the next 4 weeks, but I'm going to go negative with regard to inventory in this particular week, and therefore I may need to start to pay attention to that. And so this is extremely valuable information where we're utilizing the digital ledger to pull the data in and manage that. This is another example of a demand and planning solution that we built has to do with a company that's in the seed business, looking at all of this, and then they have to allocate these seeds at the end of their growing season. And so this is a system that automatically helps them to allocate based upon formulas that we write for them, based upon last year's orders and this year's orders. And again, in this particular example, you would probably have 200 people involved in this where they're sharing all of this data. Last one I'll show you is a system that we built for Brocade that has to do with component manufacturing or component management. So while they've got contract manufacturers that manufacture their electronic products, they're responsible for all of the components. And so they need to know when a component is low on inventory or is too much inventory. And we've got a whole workflow and system that's built into this. Again, if they went out and tried to either write this system themselves, very complex system, it would take several years and millions of dollars. Or if they tried to buy an off-the-shelf solution, they'd end up converting it into what they want, and it never is the same. Or they can take what they use today with spreadsheets and implement that onto the Boardwalk platform with our help and get the best of all worlds. So that's a great example. So I'm going to stop there, Florian. I think I've probably taken up too much time, and I'm very happy to answer any questions or dig deeper on anything that you think I may have missed.
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you very much. Especially all the examples were very helpful for people also that are not that familiar with the company, because it's, I think, often not easy to sort of just get from the company description how it actually looks like, what product that is offered. And so I guess I want to start with the sales pipeline. So it's about 9 million now, grew about 1 million in Q4, if I understood correctly. How would you expect that to translate into revenue?
Yeah, so everything that's on the pipeline are real deals where we've met with the prospective clients, and there's a real opportunity that's sitting there. Based upon that, our sales cycles can run anywhere from 3 months to 9 months, and so when you look at those, you could expect that we should be able to close over the next, call it 12 months. Somewhere between 50 and 60% of that business on the pipeline. Some will pull in, some will move out, but that's kind of been the general rule of thumb. And we're very focused right now on expanding our sales force and on sales and marketing. We're not really spending a lot of money, excuse me, on R&D. You have to continue always to spend money on R&D to stay ahead. But our real focus is on driving that top line and getting to profitability.
I think you don't disclose a percentage of R&D. Are you happy to do that, or do you?
Yeah, I would say, I would say that we're kind of following an industry standard, but I think it's probably somewhere between 20 and 25% at this point, but I don't know exactly what the number is. But again, while we have to continue to build our products and enhance our products, especially with this new market that we're moving into in the financial services, my point about that, Florian, really is that we're very focused on sales and marketing right now, and we're not having to spend an inordinate amount of money on R&D. The products are effectively done and working beautifully.
Perfect.
Florian, if I could, it's Charlie Glavin. The other aspect within the R&D is because most of the technology risk is behind, although we are adding on new incremental value. A lot of our R&D guys are actually supplementing and working hand in hand. So our sales guys are bringing in, like Dharmesh, one of our co-founders, out there. So how do you allocate the time? So rather than take a look at that discretionary areas, which then you have to track on kind of on that basis, It makes more sense to do it from a salary base. But what I can tell you is we are looking at the bottom line and less in terms of, say, the gross margin or the breakdown, as opposed to how much resources do we need to close the deal? How much do we have to anticipate to the next one, and so on and so forth. And Andy had mentioned that the target is to become profitable by the end of the year, but not at the sake of, if it requires putting more professional services or sales and marketing guys to increase the top line to have a much more robust profitability when we become profitable, that will be the target. So we are looking to be profitable. We could turn profitable, in the very near term. But given that the pipeline has expanded so much, including some of the complexities with those newer deals, enhanced security instead of doing shared dedicated servers, these are all high-class problems. And so, there's a bit of we want the customer or investors to be patient, but more importantly, it's taking a look at a longer-term return to the investors, not trying to just go for a more myopic return.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think you have about 50 full-time employees. Where do you see that going?
Well, we're certainly going to continue to expand, again, with a real focus on sales and marketing. And then, of course, as we also continue to build out this new market that we're focused on now, which is in the financial services market, that may require us to add staff as we start to see some of these, hopefully larger deals start to close in this particular industry. So, you may see us having to increase staff in order to meet the demand of some of this new revenue that would be coming in from this market.
But Florian, remember that a lot of those seasoned software engineers are out of India, and there is a significant cost advantage, as opposed to if we were based in Toronto or Silicon Valley, where the cost of that sort of expansion and the operating leverage might be compromised or delayed.
Yeah. Just to come back a last time to the pipeline, I think it has about doubled from 2020. And considering that you said it's reasonable to assume a sales cycle of about 12 months, should we then assume to see a lot of the backlog from last year basically show up in revenue rather soon?
Well, I think that's a decent assumption.
Excellent. The other thing I wanted to touch on a little bit more is sort of the sales strategy. How does a company know that you exist? How does a company find you, or how do you go into a company? Obviously, we have this land and expand, but then also new customers.
Yeah, so certainly with regard to the new customers, this is very traditional enterprise selling, blocking and tackling. Now, I will say that the COVID and the COVID has changed things, but also the market has changed, and we've had to adapt. It's been fascinating to watch where, this is my 5th company now in the enterprise software space. What we used to do, which is, go to conferences, meet people, take them out to dinner, shake hands, kiss babies, do all that stuff, and drive leads through that. That doesn't happen anymore. And there's a lot more on social media and different methods like LinkedIn, like Google keywords, where you're driving people to websites that allow them, and landing pages that hopefully you can capture their attention with, because you'd only get about a minute. And then from there, it's got to be pretty compelling, and drive them into either saying, please contact me, or I'd like to learn more. And then you've got sales development reps that then chase those leads and turn it into an opportunity that then gets handed off to an executive salesperson. So that, from going after the new logos is our current strategy. And so the old adage of doing advertising, that kind of stuff, you do that through different methods in social media, through LinkedIn, through Google, and through other means. With regard to land and expand, let me tell you, we love our customers. We are in our customers' kitchens, if you will, kind of a funny thing to say that with the COVID right now, but we're in their kitchen all the time, talking to them about what's next, what can we do, how can we improve, doing again the traditional, monthly meetings with them, what's going on. And you got to remember too that a lot of these guys, we're running mission critical processes for them. I mean, you look at some of these companies and literally they're gonna they're going to make their quarter or not based upon the information that they're deriving out of the Boardwalk system that tells them whether they should order more, buy more, or do this. And so we've got to stay really close to them, and we're in a constant discussion with them on where do we expand next to be able to help you, Mr. Customer.
What are the primary challenges that you guys face right now from a land and expand perspective?
It's certainly there's been some COVID headwinds. I think people are a little bit, they take longer to make a decision about this. But again, if you've got a compelling value proposition, you can always get it done. But we certainly have seen that the sales cycle has expanded by a few months. So that's been a challenge. I think one of the other challenges in the industry itself has been the whole challenge around security, where we talk about the big value proposition that we provide security and compliance around these spreadsheets. But when you're in the middle of doing a deal with a Fortune 500 company where it's a SaaS model, they're going to run you through the gauntlet with regard to getting security on your system approved, and that's also taking a little bit longer. But again, we've had some opportunities where that are new logos where we've closed deals in 3 months. We've had other ones that's taken us a year. We've had land and expand where we get a call and say, can we get started tomorrow? And we've had other ones where we've chased a particular opportunity for 6 months, and then finally the VP says, okay, let's go do it, right? So it's kind of all over the board.
And with respect to your current customer list, I mean, that's a truly impressive list. I would assume a few of those sort of in the legacy part of perpetual licenses and just about to be converted, or how should we think about this list? Because from the outside, if you see the customer list, you think it's easy to get more business there, or should be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's much easier to get it when you've got an existing customer. On those legacy customers that do have a perpetual license, yes, it's been a bit of a challenge to try and get them converted. We have made a couple of conversions. We continue to talk to them. And, the story is, look, the perpetual license that you have is older technology. While it still works and it's great technology, look at all the new bells and whistles that you get if you can move it over to our new SaaS environment. And that's kind of the message that we, that we're working with them on.
And in terms of, so you mentioned financial services, banks, that is sort of your next focus, basically?
Yeah, it's definitely the next target that we're working on. So, and I'm glad that you asked. In the fourth quarter last year, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, that's underneath the Department of Treasury, I think it is, or Federal Reserve in the U.S., they're the they're the compliance guys basically, and they issued a public press release, and in that press release they talked about a $400 million penalty that they applied against Citibank for their lack of security and compliance around what's called end user computing environments. And an end user computing environment is basically a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And there definitely are issues. So this penalty was a wake-up call for a lot of the different financial institutions where finally the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency said, here's a big bank. We've been asking them to get these spreadsheets under control. They're not. Here's a penalty. Cease and desist, get them under control. And so, we have been having conversations with many large banks about this. And there's some real excitement that's starting to build around the uniqueness of the Boardwalk technology, of being able to take an existing spreadsheet and rapidly convert it over onto our digital ledger platform that provides the security and compliance as required by the OCC, but most importantly, does not require very much change from a user standpoint, right? So the only alternative today that a lot of these banks have in converting these EUCs or manual spreadsheet-based processes is to effectively rewrite it onto some new platform, whether it's low code or no code, or just a big code platform. And if you've got 1,000 formulas and 40 macros, and you've been using this spreadsheet across 200 people for 8 years, and it's matured, and it's how you run your particular business unit, and now all of a sudden you're going to ask them to transform that over into a web form where they don't have much control of formulas or anything like that, it's going to be a problem, and very costly, by the way. So when you look at some of these banks that have 20, 30, 40,000 of these spreadsheet processes that today are not in compliance, Boardwalk, we believe, has a real unique opportunity in the marketplace today with our technology that we have not seen anyone else in the market be able to do what we can do as quickly as we can do to help these banks transform these spreadsheets into a fully compliant environment. And so, the time will tell here. We're very enthusiastic about this. We believe that the go-to-market strategy for this particular channel is going to be through partners. And so we've been recruiting a lot of the large IT services companies that today service these banks and have long relationships with them. And we'll be utilizing those particular IT services companies as a way to get into the banks to then provide our software, and then have those IT services companies provide the professional services to help to do the transformation and moving these spreadsheets over onto the Boardwalk platform. So this, you talked about kind of go-to-market and our marketing and sales strategy. This particular market is best served through these partners, and this is what we're doing. So we've got kind of a two-pronged approach. We're going after and recruiting partners, and we also are going after and recruiting banks directly. But most of the activity that we've had so far in discussions with these banks has come through partners.
And so in my understanding, a lot of these financial institutions or banks are already working with other companies on this issue, basically. So I saw something from Microsoft, basically, for example, then also Citi, for example, against which the Office of the Controller issued this fine. They have invested in another low-code platform. So how do you see your chances to get into these institutions, sort of despite what they already do?
Sure. So there's kind of a two-pronged answer to that. First of all, setting the stage with regard to the market, there's a lot of low-code application platforms that are out there that do certain things, and they may do certain things well. Our specialty on the low-code application platform piece of this is transforming these Microsoft Excel environments without having to change the Excel itself over into our low-code digital ledger platform with all of the transaction chaining, history, security, compliance, compliance tracking, all of that. We really have not seen anyone else that can do exactly what we do. And again, there's a lot of FUD in the marketplace about this. Microsoft, certainly wonderful company, unbelievable, opportunity for them, and very unique solution that they have, but yet they cannot do what we do with this unique cell technology that we have patented, where we manage all of the data at the cell level with a unique identifier. And again, this allows us to be able to track all of this. So yes, there's a lot of low-code platforms out there. There's a lot of FUD in the marketplace. All I will say is we will see a year from now who's won the lion's share of this business, and I think it'll be really interesting to watch.
Florian, if I could, one of the other things that we come into a dilemma is low code is often viewed as a lower level, and I think it undermines the robustness of the platform. Before the call began, we were discussing this as far as we do not rewrite code, and because of the new platform that was designed, and that was really the pre-2018 startup phase, being able to not develop a really cool app or a low-code system, but rather a robust platform. And as I was telling you, I would have killed for this if I was still at Intel or Credit Suisse. And the ability of having global teams be able to work on the same models, repository of information, inputting, changing information without compromising the veracity and provenance of the underlying data. Think about what that means to audit, stress test, doing real-time simulations. No other platform I saw has done out there. But when we say low code, what we're not saying is, oh, we've dumbed it down. It's still that robust, but we're not rewriting code, but through the APIs. And as a result, when we signed our license with EY, from the day that we signed the license to EY went live with its own clients in its tax department was 6 weeks and a team of 5 guys, which means we are scalable, we're quick to market. We're not an SAP where you're going to see an implementation team in there for 2 to 3 years and 40 guys who have occupied that West Wing, over there. That's really the approach that we're doing. So we're actually the best of both. But do not let that trick you into thinking that we are scaled down in terms of the robustness or the ROI we provide to our customers. Right.
And, and Florian, one of the other big distinctions here is that when someone says low code, the traditional method that these banks have tried over the past year or two to solve this problem is to take the Excel spreadsheet application that, again, might have 40 macros and 1,000 formulas and be shared through a shared drive or through email with 200 people, and basically rewrite the application onto a low-code platform. Now, I don't care how low code you are, if you've got 1,000 formulas or 1,000 lines of code that need to be rewritten and tested, it's going to take time. And so where a traditional low code platform to convert one of these applications over to a web form user interface and totally eschew the Excel user interface, which the users will hate, can take anywhere from 6 to 7 months, where Boardwalk can do this in a matter of days or a week for most of these, because we're just taking the Excel and the existing formulas and macros and porting it, if you will, onto our existing platform that provides all of the compliance and security that you need. So you've got a much higher user adoption, you've got a much faster method to market, and you've got happy users at a much lower cost associated with trying to transform 10 or 20,000 of these spreadsheet processes. So that's why we're very enthusiastic about this market. We have not landed our first customer yet. We're in the middle of it. And again, I think it's going to be very interesting for me to come back to breakout investors 6 months or a year from now and give you an update on where we are on this market. I think it could be very exciting for Boardwalk. And just so you know, I think Andy's giving himself a lot of wiggle room in terms of that timeline.
Perfect. Yeah, that is something I have read about as well. If you look through a few of these case studies, you see implementations of 6 months, 9 months, even longer. And then I see what you have with basically a few weeks, meaningful difference there.
Yeah, for sure. Do the math on 20,000 on, days versus months or quarters. and it can make a it's a material difference.
Fantastic. I think that the last thing I wanted to ask about is when you did your financings, obviously that's typically this combination of stock and warrants. And did you look especially after your investors, or how did you decide with whom to do the financing? Who owns the shares, the warrants? Are these long-term holders or?
Yeah,
Right.
if I can actually
Go ahead, Charlie.
Interject, because one of the things, since I came in after Andy had started the original RTO process, Florian, was this last financing was really a completion of the original intended amount when Andy, took the company public in 2018. And I think that's important to understand that the execution of this and the recent financings were really the completion of that original intended amount to pay off the debt for others. Now, in terms of taking a look at when you do an RTO with an investment bank, you can also get a lot of flippers. And that was really what occurred in the beginning of Boardwalk. Since then, the non-brokered financings or the brokered financing that we did in January was targeted for longer-term investors who would be looking at this not on just a quarter-by-quarter basis, but really over a 6 to 12-month period at least. And for a couple of different reasons, on that one is the sales cycle. But the other thing is really in terms of taking a look at the value proposition as an undervalued company. So when we took a look at that, we did, and I maintain from my old days on the sell and buy side, I had a list of every single person who had contacted us. So we went out, coordinated with brokers. We had a couple of, of brokers, who were included. As much as Echelon was in that, we also had Canaccord, Lee Jones, and Haywood, who also were involved, who also could do cross-border as well. So we tried to combine that overall. The warrants were an extra kicker, and particularly given that this is a Canadian company, we took a look at it. The other one that Canadian investors like is convertible. Well, if you're trying to get out of debt, and the biggest pushback is on debt, doing a convert, even though they like it, wouldn't have been. So we opted for the equity units with the warrants overall, with the 2-year, and took a look at recent type of benchmarking versus others. And through the combination of the two, we were able to, again, pay off all of the debt, keep a balance and have a working capital, again, to the ultimate idea, and that's to not only fund the business, but also from an optics standpoint, not get involved or waste time with any customers who are looking at the balance sheet and have any concern with that. Plus having the kicker that as we perform, which we had confidence for, the warrants are going to provide an extra kicker to both the investors who are going to be involved in that, as well as providing supplemental cash. Not cash that we need it, but cash that provides that much of a buffer. We're not in a position where we need to make any sort of acquisitions to fill in gaps or go to other markets, but it's really an ability to get the optics that much better. And again, my biggest concern is not so much, as I think I've mentioned to you, I need to prepare us for not necessarily if things go bad, but if things go right. Do I have enough cash to be able to hire professional services with India to support multiple big contracts? Because many of our customers don't allow us to use their name because they view us as a competitive advantage. Can you imagine if I went back with, there's 4 guys in the pipelines and I have to tell 1 or 2 of them, hey, I really would have liked to have helped you get market share, but I was too concerned about about managing my balance sheet. So you guys will have to wait 6 months. No, the stock out's the worst thing you can have. So with this new funding, we're in a position that our biggest challenge will be how to fund or how to properly resource to ensure that we close as much of the pipeline in time. That is really our quest right.
And Charlie, the number of institutional investors that we picked up on this last round, I think might be important for them.
Well, we did. The biggest problem is several of the institutional investors came in underneath street name. So if you take a look at it, but the number of investors has now increased to over 170 in terms of listed. But just take a look at the CDS number, and it's our largest investor because they're holding everything in street name overall. But it was a good combination. We weren't looking at strictly the retail, but a combination of institutional and others. And as the market cap increases, there are guys in Vancouver and down, south of the border as well that we're looking to target, as new direct investors.
Very nice, very nice. We have taken more than an hour of your time. We had, I think this was fantastic. I think you're doing a great job and happy to be a shareholder.
Florian, we're very honored to be at Breakout Investors and to have you as an investor. And I thank you very much for letting Charlie and I tell the story.
Yeah, we were happy to welcome you back in some time. Let's see how things develop, but
Terrific.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Florian. Thanks, guys.
Good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
Neither Breakout Investors nor any of its affiliates makes any representation or warranty, express or implied, as the accuracy or completeness of the statements or any information presented by this podcast, and any liability, including in respect to direct, indirect, or consequential loss or damage, therefore is expressly disclaimed. The views on this podcast expressed are those of the speaker and not Breakout Investors. No one on this podcast is an investment advisor, and no one is providing investment advice. Before investing in any company stock, you must do your own research. Thank you for listening.